Greetings. I hope you find yourself here because you're interested in exploring occupations. I'm Valerie Erickson and we'll be taking a look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics website today. What I hope you will walk away with today are newly found resources for career planning. These tools will allow you to determine which occupations are growing, which are declining, the potential salaries for your chosen occupation, where you wish to live, the education required to obtain the job, and where the jobs are located. Additionally, the information will allow you to evaluate the return on your educational investment when you graduate from college. As I mentioned, we will be spending time exploring the Bureau of Labor Statistics today. This is the government agency that measures the labor market. And since it's a government agency, that information is published and freely available to everyone, including occupational outlook for over 500 careers. So let's start out by going through an exercise on the bls.gov homepage. So why don't you head over there, and we're going to be locating the Occupational Outlook Handbook. There's obviously, as a website, there's several ways to go about doing this, but why don't you find one way to reach the Occupational Outlook Handbook. If you're going to have any trouble finding these things, we will be showing those and giving a few different paths to find that information. Okay, from the I'm going to call it the OOH homepage. What is the easiest way to find a mechanical engineer? All right, so you may have found it through the A to Z index or the search handbook box, but let's move on to once you're on that mechanical engineer page, what is the percentage increase in available jobs expected to be? Now, what is the date range represented in Job Outlook? Are careers as a mechanical engineer a good opportunity? Yep, and as we can see here, it looks like the average for all is 7%, and a mechanical engineer is at about a 5% growth rate expected up to 2024. Take a look now quickly at the What They Do tab. This is a great resource to just get a feel for what this job is and a nice written out description. Now help me find which industry has the most mechanical engineers. All right, and you may have found that that is engineering services. Let's look at the educational requirements for mechanical engineers now. And you will find that on that How to Become a Mechanical Engineer page. You can see it's a bachelor's degree, minimum. What's the median wage for an engineer employed in the aerospace products and parts industry? And here you can see that it really does make a difference which industry you are working in, even though you may have the same occupation. How about 3 similar occupations? Can you move to the Similar Occupations tab? So we're going to shift gears here a bit and move on to the Occupational Employment Statistics Query System, another great database tool. And here we'll be able to slice the data in different ways, looking from a big picture standpoint, and you will be able to build your own query. So some of the things you'll find here are job prospects in a certain geographic area or industry, looking at salaries across those, the number of jobs, and over 800 occupations are included in this. So let's navigate to the OES query system, and you can do that using the search box. All right, from the home screen on the OES query system page, we have 4 different options. We're going to choose for our first exercise the multiple occupations, one geographic area. The reason you would use this is to compare various salaries for jobs in a certain geographic area. So let's start out by choosing a city that you're interested in living in. Then choose all occupations. Select all data types. And we're going to output that to HTML. So what is the mean salary as you get to that screen for general and operations managers? And how many are employed in this occupation? Your screen should look something like this. It's a lot of information, but that was the point on this first query, is to take a look at what the breadth of the information could be. So we're seeing all the data types, all of the occupations. You will be able to filter this differently if you go back to that query, and you could focus the results. And we're going to do that in the next exercise. We're going to move on to looking at another query type. So what you'll want to do is click on the blue Back to Inputs button. This is the easiest way to get back to that initial query screen. And then we're going to start with looking this time at multiple occupations and one industry. So reason you may want to look at this is that you want to know about all job salaries for a certain industry, and it doesn't really matter to you what geographic area. Obviously, you'll want to look at geographic areas and understand cost of living in this scenario, but just to get a picture of how this query might run, we will go through this exercise. Choose an industry sector that interests you. Select from there the industry you want to explore. Again, choose all occupations in this list. And then this time we're going to select a few data points that you want to display. And you can use here, if you're on Windows, a control click or a command click on a Mac to be able to select several different data points that you want to display in your query results. And then you're going to output that to HTML. So this will help us get a feel for differences in salary in a particular industry. Now I chose all data types in my query, but your results should look something like this. I had chosen an industry of data processing, hosting, and related services, and then I did select a couple of manager occupations when I was doing my search, but you should have something like this. Now the query system has 2 other types, which we won't do an exercise on, but feel free to do that on another exploration that you're doing. The one that we're viewing here is one occupation with multiple geographic areas. So if living in a certain place is important to you, you may want to explore occupations from this perspective. You can see that I chose certain areas within Wisconsin, and I also chose a certain industry when I was doing mine. And that allows me to see the differences between, say, Green Bay, Madison, Milwaukee, as far as a salary for this type of occupation. The fourth query type is one occupation with multiple industries. This one's nice if you're interested in a certain occupation, but it exists in many industries. Mechanical engineering was a good example of this. So in this view here, I happen to choose a manager type role, but it's going to show me how the salaries can vary and the number of positions can vary across those different industries. So let's move on to our final database tool that you're going to take a look at on the BLS website, and that is the OES mapping tool, the Occupational Employment Statistics Mapping tool. As you can see, this is going to be a more visual representation. This allows you to compare occupations on a map of the United States, looking at the number of jobs and salary related information. For those of us that like a visual representation, sometimes this is a really nice way to look at where the hot jobs are. Let's run through an exercise then on the OES mapping tool. So navigate to the OES mapping tool. In this case, again, the search is probably the easiest way to do that. We're going to choose a major occupational group, then choose an occupation, and choose the measure employment by state, which I think might be the default when you land there. So what states have the most jobs on this map? And how many jobs are available in Wisconsin for this occupation? So you can see that if you hover over the state, you'll get a little box that gives you some information there. Let's observe the employment quotient in Wisconsin, and then observe that quotient in California for this job. And which of the two has the more per capita jobs? So obviously per capita jobs is an important fact. Again, color isn't everything on this map. It could be misleading depending on the industry. A state with a low population might have a high job quotient if that state specializes in or is a center of excellence for a certain occupation. We hear about like Silicon Valley, for example. Jobs in that type of industry might be more prevalent in that area. So it's going to really depend, and you have to look at all factors, but this is a nice way to see where those jobs are sometimes centered. So as you can see, that OES mapping tool is very intuitive. I would encourage you to play with that more. But let's move on to a recap of what we've covered today. BLS.gov is the source for job market data. We covered the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is detailed information about an individual occupation, including salary, educational requirements, descriptions of what the job really is, what industry is it's most prominent in, and any kind of job growth expected. Certainly you'll want to focus on that element when you're planning to go into college and figuring out where you might want to be in your career. The Occupational Employment Statistics Query System was the second database that we took a look at, and that is allowing you to view things across industries, across geographies, taking a bigger picture view to determine where exactly that occupation might be the best area to pursue. And then the OES mapping tool is the graphic representation of occupations, helping you determine where across the US might be a good place for those occupations. Thank you for spending time surfing the BLS.gov site with me today. There is so much more on this site that we have barely scratched the surface of what is available out here. So I hope you find this a good introduction to what is available, and the information that you've observed is useful in your search for the perfect career. Certainly, it's really important that you find a worthy return on investment in your education. Research well. Thank you.